Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to JCN.
All channels, this is Juliet May. Radio check, over.
What is up, everybody, and welcome back to JCN. I'm Jack, your host. Today we're going to be answering subscribers' questions. Keep in mind, we are not experts or advisors. These are our opinions and our thoughts. So, like, subscribe, and share. Please leave some comments. We love to hear what you guys have to say, and it really helps us with our content. So, without further ado, intros. Mr. Mitch Clark himself.
Hey, what's up? I'm Mitch, former Army infantryman turned hood rat extraordinaire. Yeah, I'm not an expert on anything except the things I'm an expert on.
So, to get right into it, we're going to read your guys' questions. The first couple questions are from my wife, Brooke. The first one being, why did you start the podcast and where do you see it going? So, I wanted to start a podcast for a really long time, and I didn't have the money for a while to get the equipment. We have very limited equipment because everything that we have and everything that we use came directly out of pocket. But I really got to a point in today's society where I felt like it was kind of my duty, like I had to try and help people to understand the politics of today and kind of current events that are going on. I have a military background. Mitch has a military background, like he said, and then lately, over the past probably 2 or 3 years, I've been pretty politically um, kind of reawakened. I grew up Democrat. My dad was a big Democrat. My mom was a Republican. So that was a big fight in the household, but they decided that they just would not talk about it whatsoever. So growing up, I didn't really have a framework of what Democrats stood for, what Republicans stood for. Um, and as I got older, went to the military, and kind of found my way, did my own research, and now I would always call myself an independent. And as I got older, I lean more right. I wouldn't say that I'm a hardcore Republican or anything like that, but um, my virtues and values kind of more closely line up with the right. So you could call me a soft Republican, but I really still kind of lean toward independent. If you have the right values and the right structure and you want to do the right things for the country, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or a conservative. I will vote for you. So um, but anyways, it got to the point where I just felt like I really needed to help people to realize what's going on, kind of explain my side of everything, kind of what I feel about it, what I think about it. Um, and where do we see it going? I'm really leaving that up to you guys. I would really like to do some sports stuff. Um, my whole group of friends, we all grew up playing all kinds of sports and doing all kinds of really, really fun activities. So, I'd love to get some sports in there. We'd like to do some challenge videos, getting out on the disc golf course, the golf course. Mitch has recently picked up shooting arrows, so archery. So we may incorporate a little bit of that into it. And we love doing stuff like that as well. I have a shop that I recently put up, and I have my grandfather's old pickup truck. I'd love to. I'm doing a full restore on it, so I'd love to bring you guys along for that. But according to your guys' comments and what you guys think, would be the best content, that's kind of where we're gonna go with that. So, you have anything on that?
Yeah, I think the podcast is going to be a pretty big success if we can keep, a broad spectrum of, what we do and, just attract multiple audiences and stuff with multiple interesting, subject matters. And then kind of reel people in. And then when we talk about the big, juicy, important stuff that we think people should know, we've got multiple, audiences, multiple demographics of people, tuning in to see what we have to say about it. It'll be pretty
Yeah.
cool.
And also, I forgot to say, I did my last video was on the Second Amendment and kind of some information about guns and ammo. I really would love to do some free hands-on stuff. Like I said, I'm no expert. I'm not a gun expert. I'm the, I had a bunch of. I grew up with weapons all around me. I grew up firing rifles mostly. Very little handgun experience until I got to the military. But I would love to do some, you know, just do's and don'ts, proper handling and proper clearing techniques with weapons. So that could be in the future as well. I'd really like to do that. Um, but that being said, we'll move on to number two. This one's also from Brooke. Why do you care so much about the Second Amendment? So, if you watch the last video about the Second Amendment and guns and ammo, I care very deeply about this. I've had friends in the past that have I had one friend in particular when I was a young child, accidentally shot his sister with a World War II rifle and killed her, and he was never the same again. Um, a little bit more recent, here a couple years ago, I had one of my really good friends uh, playing around with a handgun and shot himself in the head on accident. Um, Also, I've uh, been around people that didn't know how to handle weapons, and they constantly flag and do real no nos with weapons. So um, I'm a huge advocate for teaching your children how to properly respect and handle firearms and store firearms. And I think that a bunch of the accidental deaths or injuries can be mitigated that way. But as it pertains to the Second Amendment, we as Americans have the right, and most countries around the world do not, to own and bear arms, and it shall not be infringed. This is huge because we have criminals all over the world that are either legally or illegally carrying weapons. And I think that every single citizen of this great nation should be able to carry a weapon for their own self defense and the self defense of their families. And I really think that as it being one of our rights, it would be tragically wrong to take away the ability or the necessary tools for a family, father, mother, even their children, to protect themselves from a criminal, or even, I'm sure Mitch will have a lot to say about the one of the biggest reasons that the amendment was made to keep in check our government from becoming a tyrannical government. um, that being said, like I said, everyone should have the proper tools to protect themselves and their families.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely, like you said, we have to realize why the Second Amendment is in place, why it is an amendment. It's not there for hunting or sport shooting or anything like that. It's there in the event that our government becomes tyrannical, and our founding fathers put that in effect because of where they came from, like how our country was founded. We
Absolutely.
left a tyrannical regime, uh, and established the U.S. as a place, founded on freedom and you know ideals of a free society. And part of that is having the right to bear arms in case your government does become tyrannical. Um, and then we take a look at the debate on the Second Amendment and stuff, and people want to abolish the Second Amendment because they want to prevent mass shootings and gang shootings, and all this gun violence around the country. And a lot of that can be solved with education on firearms. If people are proper have proper education on firearms, then they'll be less likely to commit senseless gun crimes. And also,
Absolutely.
there's the fact that most of these, you know, uncalled for shootings, a lot of the times it comes from someone who's legally not allowed to possess a firearm anyway, whether it be from violent felonies or, uh, previous, you know, uh, inclinations to commit these, heinous acts that we see in mass shootings and stuff like that. So taking guns out of the hands of responsible citizens and just allowing them to be in the hands of these people, um, it completely, like, it bastardizes what we stand for as a country. We have to be able to defend ourselves because we can only rely so much on the response of law enforcement to get there in a timely manner.
Absolutely, and I think it's a good thing to be said that we completely support our law enforcement and our military. We're both prior military, and we have the utmost respect for our law enforcement. Um, the sad fact of the matter is that response times aren't always the greatest, and sometimes the police cannot be there. I mean, they just can't get there in time. I mean, at the end of the day, it's on every single individual to be responsible for themselves and their families. I mean, and you are your first line of defense, and that's point blank. Period. Uh, a lot of people often ask me when I talk about guns. Oh, would you like to live in a world where everyone carried a gun? And I look at them and I say, yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Um, I was taught a multitude of proper handling and safety techniques as a child. When I got to the military, uh, they're they're pretty hardcore about gun safety when you're on the range and the first time you go out and you fire. And you see somebody getting speared because they're waving the rifle around and flagging people. That I never had to go through any of that because I was taught properly as a pretty young child. You never point a weapon at somebody, regardless of whether it's loaded. And there's just certain things that I think should be taught to all children, especially since it is our Second Amendment right as Americans to own and bear firearms. But we'll not get too far off into the weeds about that. Um, we'll go to our third question. What are your thoughts on mental health issues in today's society? Which is a good segue from the Second Amendment question to this because, as we talked about before, people with mental health issues, and I know Mitch has some pretty strong opinions on this. Um, because not only do we have a mental health crisis in this country, um, but we also have a real problem about once people are found unfit uh, mentally, we're real quick to want to take away weapons or take away rights, and that's the I'm not going to sit here and say that I think everyone in the entire country should be allowed to just run around with guns. I mean, I'm not some crazy right winger that's just like, oh well, you can't take guns from anybody. Obviously, if you've committed crimes like we talked about before, um, you do lose your right to bear arms. And in some cases, I really truly believe that you should be able to earn those rights back. But that's another topic. Um, as far as the mental health issues in today's society goes, I think we have three major drivers in this topic. And to reiterate, we are not professionals. We're not advising anybody in any way. These are just our opinions. But as it pertains to the mental health issues in today's society, I really believe that there's three main drivers. That being the breakdown of the family unit. Uh, so basically, our government has decided to incentivize the breakdown of the family unit. They want to incentivize, mothers without fathers in the home, or you know, people not being married. And I really think that has a drastic effect on the breakdown of the family unit in America. The second being fatherless homes, which goes right in hand with the first. Um, there we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. There are certain lessons, and we really harped on the aspect of we are in no way against same sex marriage or anything like that. I truly believe that same sex partners should be able to adopt or have children via surrogate or what have you. Um, but that being said, there are certain lessons that you learn from your father or father figure and your mother or mother figure. Um, so you know, in a family unit, you have to have certain um roles that are taken up. You learn certain things from your mother that you might not learn from your father, and that could, you know, it to me, in my opinion, you have men and you have women. Women is an adult female, and a man is an adult male. I know there's a lot of issues surrounding that in this day and age, but the biological truth is the biological truth, and we can have that and still have the family unit. And I think that will bring us to the third reason that I think we have the third main driver of mental health issues in today's society, which is SSRIs. We as a country overdiagnose and overprescribe pharmaceutical medications at a drastic rate. There are a lot of kids that need uh, pharmaceutical intervention to help them along the path uh, to learning how to cope with what they're going through. I, as a child, was put on Ritalin and Adderall, um, and it took not very long, 3 4 years before I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not taking that. It honestly, I've diagnosed ADHD, and it made me a zombie. It made me feel absolutely terrible. I would go to school and I would put my head down on my desk and just lay there all day long. Uh, Still couldn't concentrate on anything. The only impact was that I was sleeping half the day. I really believe that in order for us to get past this part in our this time in our society and in our civilization, we have to be we have to learn that the right path is not just putting people on all these medications. It's putting people on the right medications at the right time and teaching them to cope, and then how to get off of the medication and continue to learn different tools and mechanisms to deal with all of these things. Um, Once I went off of medications, I learned different ways to cope with different feelings, and different things that I was feeling throughout the day. I learned how to I learned different mechanisms to read. For instance, I was not a great reader, and it took me a long time to be able to sit down and look at a book and read it. And I had to learn that I had to read out loud so that I could comprehend what I was reading. And I would have never learned that if I was still on those medications. You know, it's just I honestly, to me, in my opinion, I truly believe that the pharmaceutical company has your health as their last concern. They do not care about our health. They care about that dollar. And I think that's all I'll say on that. Mitch, you have anything on that?
Yeah. I have two main points, and then I'll kind of stream off from there. But my two main points might seem kind of contradictory to each other, but just follow along with me. Um, so the first being that I think there's a negative stigma toward mental health. People are ashamed, embarrassed, or scared to seek mental help. Um, they they're afraid they're going to seem like a coward, or like in the military, for example, if you go and present to them the issues you're having mentally, your career is going to, take a hit. Like whether they say you're fine or not, there's going to be things that you miss out on because you need help, whether long term or just with one
Right.
certain example. Like, I mean, somebody could go in to talk to a chaplain or something in the military and say they're having a bad day. Uh, they're not feeling good. They're not right in the head. They just need to talk to someone about it. That could follow them the rest of their career in a negative aspect, and I don't think that's right. So there's this stigma that if if you're having mental issues, that you need to just deal with it yourself.
If I seek help, that that something
Yeah,
bad may happen. They might take
yeah,
away my rights or
yeah.
my, you know.
Which is very, very a valid thought, which we need to
Yeah,
reevaluate in
absolutely,
our
absolutely.
society because if if you're feeling suicidal for a period of time, that's gonna negatively affect you throughout your future as far as ability to own firearms and stuff, going back
Right,
to the Second
right.
Amendment. But the second one, which is kind of contradictory to what I just said, but there's there's a lot of people in today's society that treat mental illness as a designer illness, is how I referred to it earlier.
I
Um,
feel like that's a good way to describe it.
yeah, it's like, say someone's going through a breakup or something like that, and that's not to take away from people who are in extremely toxic and abusive relationships. Like, those people seriously have issues and they need help. But if you go through just a hard breakup, like a high school puppy love breakup, and people screaming that they have PTSD or something from that relationship, that takes away from the people who actually suffer from PTSD and things like that. It kind of minimizes their struggle when their struggle is very, very much real. If you have people claiming all these mental illnesses, it kind of like dilutes the pool, so to speak. Like, you've got this many people with actual PTSD, but then you've got thousands of other people jumping in the pool claiming they have PTSD, and they are just sad, or their heart's broken or something like that. Like, it completely, like, there's so many people that take away from the people who need actual help because they want the attention from it, or they need some kind of like coddling because they're sad or something. Like, there's a difference between being sad and PTSD. Like,
Yeah, and we spoke about this a little
yeah,
bit earlier, and not to say that you have to be, go to war or go to Ukraine or go to Afghanistan or Iraq or whatever. You don't have. It's not that if you weren't in the military, you don't have PTSD. I mean, you can get PTSD from car wrecks, from any traumatic incident. So we're not trying to take away from anybody's uh trauma. But that being said, in today's society, it does seem that a lot of people are. I think what we said earlier was mine was worse than yours, or I had it worse, and that that has quickly become a real thing in our society of, well, my upbringing was worse, and that shouldn't be how it is, because like Mitch said, it takes away from the people that actually, you know it doesn't matter if Mitch's life was 10 times harder than mine or not, or mine, vice versa. Uh, we're not in a competition of who had it worse. Uh, because you can do that all day long. You don't get anywhere. Um, what we have to realize is that everybody has struggles in their life, whether you're rich or poor, and trying to one up someone isn't the way to get things handled. And you also have to do some inner reflection and look in at yourself and really uh, think, do I need help? And if I do need help, seek it by all means. I mean, I've had to seek help. I know Mitch has had to seek help, and it's honestly, pridefully, it's not easy. It's really not easy. But we've gotten the help that we needed in times of struggle, and came out the other side much better for it, uh, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, and one more point I have is that we've seen, over the last, let's say, 10 years, we've seen a significant uptick in the amount of mental illness we see in society. I think part of that goes into, what we were just talking about, like people, claiming illness for attention and stuff like that. But then there's also some very real validity to the fact that mental illness has been increasing. I think if you look at things like Hollywood and social media and stuff like that, like people feel the need to fit this certain, image. Like, if you're 5 pounds over what you want to be, then you're fat ass. Or, you know, if you're not as attractive as the people in the movies and stuff, then you're just ugly. Um, like there's this very like fake world that people idolize that they think is the real world, and they think that's how I'm supposed to look or else I'm disgusting. Like that's how I'm supposed to act, or
Right.
I'm supposed to be the cool guy going out to parties and clubs and stuff, and if people don't like me there, then I'm not worth anything. you know there's a lot of that in today's society where they feel the need to hit the Hollywood mold. you know
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, and that's pretty much all we have on that. I think we kind of came to a good conclusion on that. So we'll move on to the next question, number 4. This will be the last of Brooks' questions. How do you stay up to date on your information? What does your research look like, and what sources do you use? So, this is a very good question because, as some of you know, I was a all source analyst, a 35 Fox in the Army. So I was an intel guy. I was put into cavalry and infantry units my whole time in the military. So I got to do a bunch of things that a bunch of intel soldiers don't get to do, which was very cool. Because going into the military, I was a very athletic guy. Um, when I talked to my army recruiter, I told them I want to be in a combat job, and of course, I got the old fashioned, recruiter workaround. We need people in the army, so we're just gonna get you in something. So the next thing I know, I'm in AIT and I'm sitting in front of a computer for 4 months with a whole bunch of guys that love playing World of Warcraft, which is fine. I have nothing against anybody that loves playing World of Warcraft. I was just kind of a different person. So I got very lucky while I was in the military to fortunately be put into a bunch of cavalry and infantry units. So I got a bunch of high speed training in that facet. Um, so, anyways, that all being said, to let you guys know that I have done a lot um, of work on sourcing and intelligence. So, how I stay up to date on information, I look at a bunch of different sources. I watch right wing podcasts, I watch center podcasts, I watch left wing podcasts, I watch military podcasts, I watch science podcasts. Uh, Other than podcasts, I watch news. I watch Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. I read the Military Times. I read a bunch of different newspapers. You really, when you're an all source analyst, you really learn to take in all of the information, because you may get a story from CNN and a story from Fox on the same story that are completely different. And as Mitch says quite often, usually the truth is somewhere in the middle. And I find that to be pretty true. Uh, what does my research look like? Well, research being the key word there. So after you get up to date on your information and you see all these stories, you really have to, uh, watching all this and taking in that information is not the research. That is literally just listening to people's opinions. um, the research side is hearing that information and those appear in those opinions, and really looking up the statistics, the analytics, the numbers, the mathematics. um, you have to do your own research. I think I used, when we were talking about this earlier, I think I used the example of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which will segue us into our next question. But before that, an example of this is, there are a lot of Americans right now that believe that the overturning of Roe v. Wade by the Supreme Court means that you, everywhere in the United States, you cannot get an abortion. It's can't be further from the truth. Um, the fact is that Roe v. Wade being overturned literally just means that we are taking the choice from the federal government and we were putting it to the states. So each state government has the right to come up with their own abortion laws. Um, we're not going to get too far into abortion or Roe v. Wade, but that being said, if you just watch your local news station, whether they be right leaning or left leaning, you may get different information, and you may have to look up and do some research on your state laws or on Roe v. Wade to understand that literally the overturning of Roe v. Wade just means that the states will decide at this point. It does not mean that the federal government says that you can't get an abortion. So, that being said, the last part of that question was what sources do you use? I have a few favorites. Pretty center, my pretty center podcasts that I like to watch are Joe Rogan and also Timcast IRL. Um, I like to watch Louder with Crowder, which is a comedic, definitely right leaning podcast. I watch some of, I'm losing the name right now. I believe it's H3, um, which is left leaning. And also, recently, I've been watching a lot of Russell Brand's podcast. Um, Russell Brand for the longest time was a pretty left leaning individual, and it really gives credence to the statement and the opinion that a bunch of the um, uh, conservative guys have talked about, where the left has gone way left and the right has kind of stayed where they were at, but the center line has been moved in a way because the left has gone so radically left. But that being said, like I said, you have to look at all the different uh, organizations, all the different right leaning, left leaning, center people, take in all that information and do your own research.
Yeah. So before I get into this question, kind of want to talk a little bit about opinions first. Because everyone is entitled to their own opinion on whatever topic they feel like they want to have an opinion about. But there's a difference between an opinion and a valid opinion. So a valid opinion is where you take information, you analyze that information, and you think critically about that information, and you form your own individual, unique thought about what you're analyzing. Um, there's so many people that have opinions in this world, and they're based on nothing but a few mere thoughts. If you want if you want to form an opinion that somebody values and that has value in itself, you need the facts. Like, facts create opinions. Otherwise, you're just talking nonsense. So to get into how do you stay up to date on your information? Typically, for me, like most of the things that I consider myself an expert on are things that I've immersed myself into. Uh, so, Ukraine, Syria, Iraq, the Islamic State. Those are just four things off the top of my head that I would consider myself an expert in because of the simple fact that I've been there. Like, I've absolutely immersed myself into that information. And the research for that is the same thing, just being there, having your ear open, realizing what the societies of these particular places think and what their, you know, uh, troubles are, what their bright places are, and as far as sources, firsthand sources are always the best. Like, if you can see something for yourself, if you can analyze something for yourself, you're going to have the most concrete evidence of, that particular subject matter that exists. Because there's nothing beats being there in person and seeing something real time to, have your opinion on it. And then if you're not there, have people that are there. Have people close to the thing that you're trying to research or you're trying to form an opinion about. Because, like, say I'm trying to form an opinion on neurosurgery. I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go talk to a mechanic. I'm gonna go talk to a neurosurgeon. So I'm gonna have a secondhand source with credible knowledge. You know, uh, and gathering information is all around us. Like, information is littered on the internet, word of mouth, everywhere. There's all sorts of information. It's up to you to take that information and form a valid opinion.
And before we get off of that question, I would really love to say, because I truly believe it, that I truly believe that legacy media such as CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, CBS, all of these news stations, all this legacy media cannot be trusted. Um, Everybody has their bias. Nobody is just a non-bias presenter of the news anymore. It does not exist. That's one of the reasons that I mostly rely on getting information from podcasts before I do my research. Um, Also, you have social media, and you can pick up little things on social media that people are talking about, but you have to also do your research because people can say anything on social media. We went through that small spurt of censoring and everything, and it's still happening, but not as badly. Anybody can say anything on social media, so you really have to do your research. So moving on, one of our absolutely great friends, one of our best friends that we've ever had growing up. Me and Mitch grew up together, and also Dylan, one of our real good friends. He asked, "Do you think the overturning of Roe v. Wade will push swing voters more towards the left?" You want to take this one first, or you want me to go ahead, or?
No, I'll take it. So yeah, I think I went on a pretty healthy rant on Facebook about this one. um, so I just want to start out by saying this is somewhere Jack and I disagree, and that's totally fine. Um, I don't agree with the overturning of Roe v. Wade for multiple reasons. Um, One of them being, I think everybody should have the right to, determine for themselves what happens with their own person. If you're going to overturn Roe v. Wade to the state level, then overturn it from the state level to an individual level where everyone just gets to decide what happens with their reproductive rights. I think that's the best, outcome for all.
very libertarian.
Yeah. But but that being said, there's there's a certain hypocrisy that we see a lot in this particular subject, because a lot of the same crowd that is very, very disgusted by the overturning of Roe v. Wade is the same crowd that was wanting to force a needle into your arm for a vaccine a year ago. And then if you flip the spectrum over, you've got the people who absolutely wanted it to be their choice whether they got a vaccine or not, are saying no, you have to have this baby because it's God's plan, or whatever religious or personal reasons they have for believing that. And it just goes to show that people are going to toe a party line uh, more often than not. Very few people in today's society want to think critically about subject matters. They just want to, figure out what the party that they follow is agreeing with, and then they'll just follow that. So they don't even have to think about it. They just let somebody form their opinion for them. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of hypocrisy in that arena with that. And with that being said, to answer the question, no, I don't think it will push swing voters more to the left, because they're gonna follow what they've always followed. Um, I would love to be wrong on this. I would love for people to, have something that they thought critically about to themselves, and it changed their opinion, whether it be to the left or the right. Um, I don't care which way you vote, because it's your individual right to do whatever you want with that vote. But I think the fact of the matter is it won't change people's opinions much, because if there's this one thing they disagree with that pushes them more to the left, there's going to be 100 things that push them back to the right. Uh, so yeah, you take it from there.
So yeah, just like he said, this is one thing that we don't necessarily agree on, but I mean, I think it's obvious we're great friends. We've been friends since we were 13, 12,
Something
13
like
years
that.
old. Um, as you can see, we're getting a little older. I got some white in the hair up here. Um, I personally, not answering the question, just saying I agree with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I think that it was bad law. I am completely against big government. I think that the federal government should not be in charge of very much of anything. I think once it gets to a federal level, it gets completely convoluted, and it's completely uh, and utterly impossible to uh, manage something on that level. That being said, do I think that the overturning of Roe v. Wade is going to push swing voters toward the left? Uh, to some degree, I agree with Mitch. That people are going to vote as they always have. If you're on the left, you're going to be on the left. If you're on the right, you're going to be on the right, regardless of what they say. We have really got into a few generations of uh, people that uh, they've really subscribed to tribalism in a lot of ways. Um, but uh, I really think that this one, Dylan, probably comes down to uh, how much information you gather on the subject. If Roe v. Wade and abortion is a really big issue to a certain individual, I think that they are going to do the research and know the information about the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And I think that state by state, which usually you will have predominantly left or predominantly right voters in each state, I think that it's gonna stay pretty similar. I don't think that it's gonna, most voters in America are not extreme left or extreme right. Extreme one side or the other. They're mostly pretty center individuals. I think that the average everyday person is pretty center on most, um, reasonably are pretty center on most of these topics. So that being said, I think if you watch primarily left wing media, that you will be pushed to the left. But I think if you watch primarily right wing media, you're going to be pushed to the right on this topic. So I would have to agree with Mitch on this. That I don't see it overwhelmingly pushing swing voters more left. But I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. So we can move on to number 6. You want to do the honors?
Yeah, this question comes from Debbie, which is Jack's wife's mother. Which is, she's an
What's up, Deb?
adorable lady. uh, where do you think public education is heading?
Oh wow.
Um, so I personally think public education has been heading pretty far south for a while. And the point I made earlier was the fact that scientifically speaking, there are multiple different methods of learning. Like, people learn differently. And it's like, I would go as far as to say, in my opinion, that it's almost on an individual level. Like, everyone learns different than everyone. Um, but in public education, you're taught one way to do something, and that's the way that you're supposed to learn how to do it, and you're supposed to be proficient at learning it that way, or you get just tossed to the wolves. Like I said earlier, most of the most intelligent people I know are high school dropouts. Um, and I think that speaks a lot to, public education not having any tolerance for individuality or uniqueness in someone. They want you to learn a certain way to do a certain thing, because public education, their goal is to turn you into a productive worker in society. Um, and being a productive worker doesn't necessarily mean having a productive and fulfilling life for yourself.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think we kind of talked about
yeah,
how back in the days of Henry Ford and that time era, there was kind of a push towards um, excuse me, the industrialized work day and the 9 to 5 job, factory worker mentality being pushed into schools. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. There's a lot of evidence that pushes that agenda, really.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's to me, if public education is going to go in a right direction, it needs to completely abandon what it's been doing for the last, at least my whole life.
Yeah.
Um, I can't speak for anything before that, 'cause I have no firsthand experience of what school was like before then. But at least in my lifetime, it's been extremely, I don't know, monotone, I guess. Like, there's there's just one way to do it, and you either do it or you get out.
Yeah. Well, for me, this question has a lot to do. It honestly goes back to the mental health issues portion of our discussion here. Um, I think that kids don't get the aren't afforded the ability to learn how to cope with stressful situations in school. When we were in school, you had a problem with a bully or whatever. The answer was you punch him in the nose, and the bullying will stop, and it did. I was a real small kid growing up, and I didn't live in the best neighborhood, and I got picked on quite a bit, and it took one good shot in the bully's nose, and that pretty much stopped it. That being said, these days you have a kid that punches somebody in school and it busts their nose. They have a bloody nose afterwards, and you're going to court. You're getting charges when you're 12, 13, 15 years old. I think it's a little ridiculous. So kids don't ever get a chance to learn how to deal with people uh, that to deal with these situations. They don't know how to cope, and I think that's when you get kids bottling stuff up and ended up coming to colleges or high schools with weapons. Obviously they weren't taught proper gun safety and respect. But aside from that, they haven't been afforded the ability to learn how to cope with stresses and disagreements within the world either. Um, but that's my opinion. I'm sure I'll have a lot of people comment on that that take there. Um,
Yeah.
other than go ahead.
Just to expand on what you were saying a little bit, I'm sure you remember in football, on our team, if we had people that were having conflict with each other, uh, we'll just say the coaches didn't know about this going on for their sake. But we had two pairs of
Great
boxing
coaches,
gloves.
great coaches.
So if you're having trouble with someone on the team, the way you dealt with it was you boxed after football practice, and it was over after
You got
that.
done. You shook hands. You
Like,
won or I won, and that's how it went.
some of the best friends I have in my life are people that I've been in a hardcore fist fight with. Me and Jack have been in fist fights, plenty of them.
Lot of them, lot of them.
Yeah, like if you just give people the opportunity to deal with that, and I'm not saying fighting's great. It's not great to go to school and get in a fight, but it sure beats the hell out of someone bringing a gun to school because
Oh, absolutely.
if I get in a fight at school, I'm gonna get in trouble. So why don't I just go ahead and get in a lot of trouble and really show this guy what's up?
Right,
Like by bringing a gun to school when you could have just had a bloody nose.
right, right.
Yeah.
We've gotten so far away from, oh, we can't have bullying, we can't have this and that. It's gotten to a point where we've overcorrected. I think that's one of the problems. Um, Also, it's something to be said, where we think public education is going. One thing that my brother was talking about when we were talking earlier was that, the way to go these days, like if I had kids right now, they would be homeschooled. Um, so we think very highly of homeschooling, and he was talking about how private schools are now just expensive public schools. Your kids are getting taught crazy stuff in all these schools that are made for kids to go for 8-10 hours a day, and you don't know what they're being taught. Uh, So, we're huge proponents of homeschooling. I know Mitch has some firsthand experience with, some of his nieces and nephews being homeschooled. I was homeschooled. My family was homeschooled for a little while, 2 or 3 years. And it's come a long way. There's also community homeschooling now where you have, 2 or 3 parents that are teaching, 10, 12 kids, and there's so many resources. I would tell everybody if their children are having trouble in public school to look into it at least. I know some people, the moms and dads, or both dads or both moms, like we said earlier, we don't discriminate. Um, they both work, and it's not possible. Well, you might be able to get in with some other parents that are running some homeschooling and be able to do a community homeschooling type deal. So just look out there. Definitely have your children's best interests at heart. I think children are the future, and when we're not doing them right in education, we are literally creating an avenue for us to fail. The kids are the most important part of our society. The next generation is going to be the politicians, the sheriffs, the people that work on tech that change our lives, medical doctors. I mean, the kids are everything.
Yeah, absolutely. To expand on homeschooling a little, I feel like in a traditional sense, homeschooling is kind of implied that, a parent stays home and the kid sits in the house all day and you're basically just doing school from your living room. Uh, but today that can't be further from the truth. There's so many different programs. For example, my niece and nephew every once a week for about 3 or 4 hours they go to a nature class. My sister handpicks their curriculum for their particular learning styles. Um, she researches what the most effective methods of learning are, and with homeschooling, you're afforded this luxury to where you can literally handpick your child's curriculum, whereas in public education, it's just whatever the government and state is mandating for them to learn.
Yeah, yeah, which I think is a huge point to make is that also the teaching standards. There's no way that Alaska should have the same standards of learning as somewhere like Florida or Georgia or Tennessee. It's completely different. There are different lessons that you really need to succeed in each different place. So I really truly think that statewide should be, I like I said, I'm against big government. I think we should take that, federal standards stuff, throw it out the door. Statewide, you pick your standards, and then, you know, maybe even have some moldability for different areas of even the states. I mean, you have states like even Tennessee, even you got states like Texas and Alaska where that's a very big state. It may differ from North Texas to South Texas, and the curriculum shouldn't necessarily be the exact same. So that's all I'll say on that. I think we pretty much covered that one.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Deb, for your question. And that will bring us to our last question from my big sister Laura. And this is a great question. I'm really glad that she hit me up last minute on this to get this question in so that we'd read it and answer it. Um, how exactly is it that electric cars are better for the environment, and exactly where do people think expired tech is dumped? So, I'd like to reiterate we are not experts, but we do our research and we know a little bit on this topic. So,
I drove a hybrid
were you a Boy Scout? No, but I ate a brownie once.
once.
Um, so when it comes to electric cars, I think the first thing we have to talk about is batteries. Do you have anything to talk about on batteries?
uh, that's more up your alley. I just have a short little bit on this one, but
Okay,
I'll let you
okay.
take it
So
first.
so when we're talking about electric cars and the batteries that they use, a lot of people want to talk about drilling oil on American soil and this and that. Let me tell you something. Lithium mines are so dangerous and so terrible for the environment. All these products and these uh, all these products that we have to minerals and ores that we have to get out of the ground to build these batteries and these electric car systems are extremely dangerous and bad for the environment. Not only that, but you're talking about acres and acres and acres for these mines, where you know deforestation. When we're talking about the environment, you really have to think about this on a global scale as well, because they do this mining in a whole bunch of different places. So for one, the batteries aren't. It's hard to recycle them. It's hard to dispose of them, and they're hard to make. That you have to mine for the materials. Um, and when we're talking about these batteries, places in like the UK, and this kind of goes to the where do people think expired tech is dumped? In the UK, they have these graveyards for electric cars, The batteries, once they go bad in these electric cars, actually cost more to replace than buying a new electric car. So they have these fields that are just as far as the eye can see, just electric cars. Hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of electric cars in this field. Um, that's not good for the environment, guys. They're leaking out, material that pollutes the ground. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Also, when we're talking about the environment, like I said, we have to think about it globally. Um, when we talk about powering electric cars, we have to think about where the electricity comes from, not where you charge it, not the docking station, but where do we get the electricity? Um, there was I can't remember the person or even the place, but I watched a video the other day of a woman that was talking about all these new charging stations at their local business. And a reporter comes up to her, and the reporter asks, "Well, where does the electricity come from?" She's like, "Right here, the charging station. It comes from this building." And the reporter says, "Well, where does the building get electricity from?" And she says the company, and he's like, "Well, how do they get the electricity?" And she can't tell him. Well, then it goes to the next clip or whatever, and it's the CEO or one of the big wigs of the corporation that makes the energy, and he's like, "Well, most of our energy comes from coal, over 90%." I mean, we got to think, guys. The energy doesn't just come from anywhere, and it's not sustainable to use solar and wind farms to power this country. We have rolling brownouts already. I mean, who thinks it's a good idea to plug up over a million electric cars overnight every night? Um, as far as environment goes, and all these environmentalists, if you're not talking about nuclear energy, you're not a true environmentalist. I mean, we really truly have to start talking about nuclear energy, uh honestly, if we want to help the environment. When it comes to safety, uh by far, energy output to safety ratio is the highest on nuclear energy. The energy put in versus the energy that comes out, uh, ratio is beyond anything else. In every unit of measurement, in every aspect of energy, nuclear power is the way to go. And we're not talking about Chernobyl. We're not talking about Fukushima, these old reactors and this and that, and these processes that are dangerous and not maintained correctly. We're talking about new age uh, science that has come to fruition. These nuclear power plants are amazing, and they put out the amount of energy that can run the entire U.S. and then export energy, um, easily, easily. I mean, if we're not talking about nuclear energy and you're an environmentalist, don't talk to me. That's all I'm going to say on that. It's just not going to talk.
So with my very little knowledge on this particular topic, I do have one opinion that I tend to find pretty valid. So automobiles have existed since I don't early 1900s, if I'm not mistaken. So they've been around, you know, 100 years, give or take.
30s, 40s,
Yeah.
something like that.
And to this day, we're still finding out new things about the negative and positive effects that gasoline engines and diesel engines have on the environment.
Yeah.
Combustible. Yeah. We're still to this day uncovering facts. both negative and positive. Um, so in my opinion, we have 100 more years to go until we have even a fraction of the knowledge that the impact, like a fraction of the knowledge of the impact that electrical uh, vehicles and machinery will have on the environment. Because there's this stuff that you've mentioned as far as the mines and disposing of the batteries and stuff like that. But then there's also the stuff that we have no idea about yet, whether it be
Right.
positive or
Right.
negative impact. We still have so much to discover in that arena. And, I mean, I think it's Ford is planning on having all of their vehicles being
EV, yeah.
manufactured in electric by 2035,
Yeah,
something like
something like
that.
that.
Um, and I think that's an entirely a political stunt because, electrical vehicles are popular in the media these days. So they're trying to cater to that crowd, but rushing it out too fast, it might have a negative impact on our environment more than gasoline.
Saying that brings up another good point is that Elon Musk and Tesla have completely outdone every other automotive company um, when it comes to electric vehicles. It's most reliable. It's probably the best electric vehicle that you can get. Um, and
We are not sponsored by
yeah, we good point. We are not sponsored by Tesla. Hey Tesla, hit me up. Uh, um, but the current administration is completely against Elon Musk and Tesla, even though he is the single sole person and company that brought us full circle around to a usable electric vehicle. He the advancements that Elon Musk and Tesla made are the reason we have electric vehicles. Tesla puts in more money, I think by 10 times the margin as any other automotive producer into electric vehicles. Um so, and since his beliefs, since, Elon Musk's beliefs and narrative don't line up with the narrative that the federal government and this administration wants to push, um, I don't think I've ever heard them mention Tesla or Elon Musk. Uh, they will rant and rave about electric vehicles, but they have never said anything about Tesla or Elon Musk. And I think that's a real shame. You have somebody that's doing so much for humanity and really trying to further something that could, like we said, could be great, could be absolutely great,
We don't know.
could turn a corner, and we could revolutionize it, and it could be the next big thing. I mean, that listen, we're not trying to say that we know everything and that we have all the answers. These are just our opinions. Uh, but I think it's a real travesty that the administration that we currently have in office has really done Elon Musk and Tesla that dirty. Just to be quite honest.
Yeah, I mean, if you think back 10, 15 years, your idea of an electric vehicle is a little tiny smart car.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and Tesla kind of, was the first one to put onto the market an actually attractive, vehicle that ran on electric.
And honestly performs
Yeah.
pretty amazingly.
Yeah.
I mean, the 0 to 60 time on some of those Teslas is insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's
But yeah,
that's all we'll say on that.
We'll make another podcast in 100 years to let you know more on this question.
Updates on the electric car and carbon emission. We'll give you an update on that as well. But anyways, guys, those are some questions. Hopefully, we'll be doing a couple more of these questions answered podcasts in the future. I honestly, going back to question number 1, something we didn't hit on that was that in the future, I would absolutely love to do some shop videos, some challenge videos, some gun safety or gun handling and proper storage videos. But we are relying on you guys. Please comment below and let us know, because we, like I said, all of these this equipment that we use is all completely out of pocket. As you can see by the video, we don't have the best camera. We don't the mic's actually pretty nice. I spent a lot of my own money on this mic. Um, but what you guys want to see is what we're gonna make. Because if we ever get to a point, this is basically a hobby of mine. Like I said, it got to the point where I felt like I needed to help people understand, or at least understand as much as I understood what was going on, um, and kind of explain some things that most people ask me, and sometimes I didn't have an answer, so I needed to figure it out, and then I wanted to let other people know. So like I said, drop us a comment, like this video, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell to know when we bring something out. We're gonna really try to start doing a current events podcast where we put out one video per week, just going over day by day the headlines, what we think about them. Sometimes I'll have Mitch in here. Sometimes I might have Scott, my little brother, in here. Hell, sometimes I might have Brooke in here, my wife. We'll just have to find out. But just let us know, because what you guys want to see is what we're going to bring to you. Like always, love you guys. Stay safe. Protect your family and yourselves. Do some hard work. You'll probably find out that you like it. Get some sweat on your brow. Make those muscles sore. I'm telling you, you're gonna feel good about it. Be healthy, be awesome, shoot for the stars. Until next time, Juliet Maine out.
That was a pretty good one, dude.
I like that.